Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Covenant Cast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Steve, and the Owen Wilson of Tabletop Gaming. And in this episode,
I like that you're owning it.
We're going to talk about Savagery and the draft that we did
for Warhammer Champions.
Warhammer Champions, which we're still going to do, but a new twist has been thrown into this episode, which is a lot of movement on the U.S. side, especially of PlayFusion, and what that might mean for Champions players, including us. So stay tuned. All right, Zach, you in here?
We're in. We're diving in. There's
welcome.
A lot. You know, this has been... Yeah, welcome.
It's like there's a full moon. It's like the blood moon going on.
Something
the tides
in the past
shifted.
7 days turned, and I feel like the world's just going crazy.
It's going a little weird right now. Our industry in particular, we've seen some news here this week. Like we had the big, there's always some dramatic thing going on, and we had the recent one with, a continuation, I think, of the Stonemaier wingspan kind of angst and how that manifests in various ways, and it's finally kind of pushed out its own. I think the source of a lot of the things that have been going on are now kind of
bubbled
out there
to the surface, so to speak. Speaking of which, I do believe we might have on next week's episode Jamie from Stonemaier on the cast.
Yeah, we should have Jamie on, and we don't want to necessarily talk about the drama that hopefully will have just passed and washed over at that point, but more like the base level, the foundational things that these situations stem from. And to me, there are two things that fit into that box. One of them is something we talked about, I think last cast, is the question that you asked, or 2 casts ago. What is it that publishers owe retailers? And
what's their obligation slash responsibility?
There needs to be a very honest conversation about that, because everybody's coming in with different assumptions about what they're owed and what that looks like, and what their stores are owed if they're customers, and therefore what the customers are owed through those stores. And that's a really good conversation to have with somebody like Jamie. But then secondarily, and I think this is maybe a more interesting thing to me, because it's something that we deal with on the side of our business as well, we've seen the pluses and now especially the minuses of radical transparency, right? Whenever you become the public figure that is talking about absolutely everything that's going on in your business, if there is negative things that are brought to the fore about said business, you can't just ignore those.
Yeah, because if you're not talking about them,
right,
the inference you can make from that is way too big.
You're talking about everything except for this big issue, and so it looks like you have something to hide and these kinds of things.
If you're watching or listening and you're unaware, Jamie from Stonemaier is incredibly transparent, and I think I mentioned that in one of the last few episodes. But he posts all the time about the kind of things that most companies wouldn't ever even think about posting. Like he did his annual report, which showed breakdown of revenue by game and units sold and where they were sold and all kinds of information that you typically just don't see, which is just kind of a postmodern business way of thinking about this, which board games have not had a lot of. But I think besides that, I also am, the whole wingspan, because we talked about wingspan a lot. Mm-hmm. Like last week we talked about it during Gamma because it was the big example for retail
forecasting and
but having Jamie on to really, for me, I'm interested to hear now the story.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've
got a few more pieces.
Yeah, he's very transparent, and there's been things happen along the way, but when he posts in January, we are only midway through the story.
Yeah.
So I feel like kind of having a roundup now about what happened and why does it happen this way, and why do we end where we're ending now, right? How do we get to this point?
Kind of shining that mirror, 100%. That glass, get it fully appreciated.
I'm looking forward to that.
So we'll have Jamie on next week, or if not next week, week after, hopefully. But we're in touch with him right now. And then pivoting now to kind of the main topic, which is our original name for this, which I think we'll keep, Savagery, Triumph, or Trounce. Just quite a title, right? Doing a good job on that one. And now it has a new context. So the original idea was, we still had that Savagery box that we hadn't opened.
Yeah, because I had my Savagery subscription. It came through, right? You guys paid me for your portion of it.
That's amazing, yeah. I can't believe that you got your subscription delivered. It's a miracle.
Well, and it was just sitting on my desk, because the set came out when I was in the midst of, we were going to Adepticon, we were going to Gamma.
It's pretty busy.
Then at the tail end of that, we had a Destiny set come out, and then I went to Celebration for a week. And so it was like, I hadn't even, it literally been on my desk almost 2 months. So anyways, go ahead.
And I stopped playing digital a while back. And so we're like, well, we need to, you know what? There's Savagery is here. We've got a question here that we'll address from Panda Hero, and it was really just kind of like, let's revisit Champions and kind of circle the wagons on this and see, is Savagery going to be the next step for PlayFusion to kind of get back in the game and get back in the attention sphere of card games and tabletop gaming in general? So we split the box. We drafted the cards.
I had really not seen any of the new cards.
Hadn't seen any of the cards. And we were going to talk about it here on the cast.
Important to note, too, along with Savagery coming out, we hadn't really checked it out. We've been hearing, because that was set 3, and set 2 had come out, and the general kind of response to the card development, the game development, was like, I don't know if you guys know what you're doing, right?
On set 2?
Yeah, there were some issues in set 1, and in set 2, kind of like we had another thing creep up that was an issue, and the cards were just not that interesting. And then by set 3, all I'd been hearing was positive.
Yeah.
All the local players are like,
yeah.
oh, these are really interesting and really cool cards, and they're kind of doing some new stuff. There was errata, right? Like the 2 or 3 biggest problem characters or champions had been changed. And then not only that, they had announced a $100,000 tournament series, City Championships, that started on May 4th. And there were, I think, 12 or 14 City Championships. We're one of them. June 22nd, we talked about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, like, just from the signs, right? They put a set out. They also had the box that came out, the little campaign box. They put product out. I've been hearing good things about it. They're doing this big tournament series, which is crazier than anything I've seen that's not like Magic from tournaments in a long time.
Right.
So like, there's
Seemed
movement
like there's
here.
positive movement.
Yeah,
going
and they launched on Steam and Switch, Nintendo Switch
Yep.
platforms. So like, it seemed like there was and there's a lot of people interacting that way. So in general, it was like, hey,
It's time to revisit.
let's have a chat and see how it's going with Champions.
So we did that. We drafted the set, and we'll dive into that a little bit further on in the episode. But then maybe most notably, it was that last night as of this recording, so Tuesday of this week?
A day later.
We started hearing, rumors. You got the rumor mill going on about how, hey, the cash is no longer being offered on these city championships. Some of the staff seems to have been laid off or otherwise dismissed.
I think it broke because there's a Discord for Champions, and someone from the PlayFusion staff,
Which is
crazy,
insane.
To me, it's fine if there is a Discord.
Yeah, but nothing official in there, right? It's just a chat room.
Yeah. So best I can tell is that someone on staff posted in the Discord that City Championships will no longer have cash prizes. They're going to be replaced with this. If you have questions, email us here. Which, of course, then that spread to Facebook and so on and so forth. And no official announcement as of the time of this recording. But then the same person had gone in and said, hey, there's going to be an official announcement coming. I saw that just a little bit earlier. But then on top of that, more speculation started happening. People that kind of knew what was going on. And it seems like a lot or majority or most or all.
Or 100%.
And we don't know because we haven't officially heard, but of the U.S. staff for PlayFusion, the company, no longer is with PlayFusion. Because PlayFusion is based in the UK. That's where their home office is and where most of their staff is. But they had a U.S. team, obviously, focused on organized play and tournaments and marketing and demos and conventions and all that kind of stuff. So also, just kind of a little bit connected to that, PlayFusion has another game called Lightseekers.
Yeah.
And in their Discord had been posted that whatever their premium event is called, I forget what it is.
It's like the Gold Series or something?
All of the events for that for the rest of the year, canceled.
Just gone.
Just out of there.
Yeah.
And so at first it's like, you just think that it's pulling the cash from the city championships, which is a topic in and of itself we'll get to in a second. And then you start seeing, it's also affecting Lightseekers. And then you start seeing, the whole U.S. team is gone.
The staff.
It's like, well, no wonder you can't do
Yeah.
what's going on here. But there's what does this mean for the game? There's the secondary element, which is how does this get leaked into a Discord first before it's actually like announced, even as a partner.
As far as controlling narratives,
hosting a championship,
awareness.
Still haven't actually heard from the company about that event. So it's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And so there's that issue. And then the third is just like, what does this actually look like going forward?
What does it look like for PlayFusion? What does it look like for Champions? What does it look like for Lightseekers? And then also one of the things with Lightseekers is that I know that they've been going through, and I'm just kind of getting caught up on the fly trying to figure out what we might expect, that they had done a split release of the latest Lightseeker set, and digital, I believe, has been released. Physical has not. So I think physical of the next set of Lightseekers has kind of been running through some weird delays or something, and then it's like, well, it's maybe mid-June. And again, like as somebody on the outside looking in, not intimately familiar with that situation or what's been said about that, it does seem like, well, are we starting to pull back on physical cards and the actual idea of a physical game, these kinds of things? We've also heard, again, total speculation that Games Workshop stores may not, there was like a limited amount of time that they were guaranteed to stock Warhammer Champions, and maybe that's going away. Now that could be total, I don't know anything about that, so don't take my word on that at all.
I think though that this kind of stuff is a really great demonstration of what happens when it's the inverse of something like what Stonemaire's doing, which is like when you're slow to communicate, you lose control of the narrative, and then all of a sudden, a lot of times it doesn't even matter what happened.
Right.
It's like the negative effect and implication and impression on players and stores even is going to be.
It's already happening.
Yeah. Like no matter what you do.
Happening is there. So here's the thing that I think is most beneficial to walk through here is what are maybe the two biggest competing narratives for what this might ultimately mean and why it happened. And I can start with one if you'd like.
Sure. I mean, I have two specifically in my head.
I think we essentially have the, I would say almost a reboot narrative or a re-envisioning narrative, and then we have a cutting our losses narrative. Which one would you like to take?
So I'll start with the worst one, I think, which
start with the one that most people probably immediately default to.
I'm going to say the losses one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, essentially what it looks like from the outside, right, just pure speculation, and I'm very hopeful to hear from them.
Because so we've reached out. We expect that we'll hear back.
I was very impressed with PlayFusion. I was very impressed with their game, Warhammer Champions, and I wish them the best and hope that they succeed, right? So I hope all is well and that something crazy didn't happen. But, you know, the cutting the losses category, it kind of branches into two things for me. Something, if you are relieving all of your staff in a country, that could also point at something happening or not happening.
How many staff do you think that is? 4?
8?
20?
I have no idea. I would guess
50?
10 to 20.
Okay.
But assuming that's a pure guess, by the way, just based on who I've interacted with at conventions and stuff. No, unfounded. But if something just went majorly wrong, and the answer is, it's the kind of thing where you see in a movie or something where like someone does something really bad to upset the owner or whoever's running the company, and then all of a sudden the owner's just like, you're done? Like right now, locked out, gone, you're out of here. So that could have happened, and then if that happens, you literally, it's not a matter of, because this is the secondary thing for me on the cut the losses. It could have been that the plan was announce this huge tournament series, and we're basically going to light people up, and they're going to get super excited about this game, and we're going to sell a whole bunch more product. Tons of people are going to show up to these events because of all the prizes that are on the line. Big bet on that, right?
Right.
And then you have the first one, which I think had like 16 players.
Down there at old Travis's
which is
place.
Not horrible, but it's also probably not what you're wanting out of a $4,000 event.
16 is not enough for that.
Yeah.
No.
And so you have the first one, and then it's like, and product sales, if they haven't gone anywhere, right? And then it's like, we cannot commit this much, because it was $100,000 in prizes. They were sending a staff member to each of these. They were marketing each of these. They were doing the whole thing. And it's like, we can't spend this much money on this if this is the result. So you just cut it. You're going to lose face with the players and stuff, which is horrible. So on and so forth. So I think that's very possible, right? In this, and then the other element of that is, did something happen or not happen? And then it's just like, no, everyone's gone. And then the repercussion is not that like this wasn't working or we didn't have the resources to do it. Because the other part of this for me, which is a big question, if they announce a $100,000 championship series and aren't 110% confident that they can fund this effort,
right,
you should never have announced that in the first place.
Right, that you doing this successfully relies on an uptick in product sales directly proportional to the effort that you're putting out. It's like, once that marketing budget is locked in, that money is gone.
Yeah.
You should not expect to pay for that effort with what the results of that effort ultimately
Yeah, because
are.
I think even...
And I don't think that happened.
As like... what's the right word? As not suspicious.
Human.
It's like me not quite believing that it would work.
Skeptical.
Skeptical, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I know it starts with an S.
That's a word that I know all too well.
As skeptical as I was about, because again, you just start seeing these trends, right? First set comes out, demand's way bigger than you printed, so you print a bunch more. By the time you get it, a lot less people are interested. You print because you already had to print the second run. You print as much of the second as you did the first plus the reprint.
And the second one's not
and
great.
And it's not great, and you don't need, like, it's just overprinted. Then you head into the third set, you kind of finally figure it out, and it's like, okay, they're going to reboot and they're going to push, and this is to get people back into the game. But, like, to me, if you were doing it, I would expect, I'm going to have this summer-long push that ends at Gen Con, where we're going to have a whole bunch more people into the game so that whatever the next set is, we're going to do a lot better on.
Yeah, so you build it to the fourth set
So
release,
you're building,
essentially,
instead of, like, I need this to affect things now. So I don't think that happened, and if it did happen, that's just a crazy plan.
But continuing the bad news narrative or the cutting losses narrative, it's like, okay, let's take that to its logical conclusion. Let's say the reality is the game, this was the last gasp of trying to re-inject some kind of energy into this thing. It didn't work. Product sales were stagnant. The attendance was low, especially with all this money on the line. The physical game is being cut. We're not going to print cards anymore. We might continue to make the digital game. It's way easier. There's low overhead. We've already got the assets designed. It's not a lot compared to cardboard. And then we move on. Mm-hmm. And Lightseekers goes digital, and Champions goes digital. All the physical product goes away, and PlayFusion tries to get back on their feet.
The thing about digital, right, is they have obviously iOS, now they have Steam, then they have Switch.
Yeah.
And they're using mostly, as far as I'm aware, art from Warhammer. So in terms of digital, if you've built a platform and you have endless amounts of art, the amount of resources required to keep making digital sets is so low, like incredibly low. And so they could make a pivot completely to the app. And I think the app is one of the strengths. I mean, for a lot of people, they would rather play on the app than even to play physically.
Which is another, like, well, maybe that's it's like the tragedy of success for digital. It's like, well, everybody just decided that this was better.
Yeah.
So they stopped buying the product.
And it's also, it could be that you did this push, it wasn't anywhere near the hype level you expected it to be. You cut it, right? Because with card games, especially with physical products like this at all, overprinting is really bad. So it could be that with this, that you could actually print a small enough run that even with the damage you're going to see from the physical side of players that are just unwilling to continue buying from this company or participating in this game, or they're just very discouraged, it still might be worth printing. I don't know what demand levels are in the UK or in the United States and stuff, but it also, you literally could go as far as it may not be worth printing.
Yeah, and most players jump to that conclusion. I mean, when you get this kind of thing, all this stuff happening at once, everybody who's been in the trading card game space for any amount of time, ourselves included, you have flashbacks, spoils, and Star Wars. Like
every game that's
ever died, it starts with some kind of big thing, and then a lot of times nobody says anything about it, and then the game doesn't come out. There's no more sets. The end. And so a lot of people jump there.
That's what I would have thought had all that happened was Champions makes an official announcement, and they say, hey, City Championships aren't going how we wanted them to, whatever. We're going to pull all the cash prizes out. We're going to revamp them with extra product support because that's what we can do and can afford to do.
That's what we have literally in the warehouse.
And if they had done that. What makes me think there's something else going on is that the way this is happening doesn't...
It's uncontrolled, right?
Yeah.
It's bursting out of various little seams that have not been properly sewn up,
and then
if you will.
You add to that narrative the fact that they're, if true, again, don't know.
Big if true?
Big if true. The staff downsizing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, those signs to me point to something went wrong. Something happened, and that staff got the boot.
Let's roll out the second narrative then. Because that's what that is basically if you're, let's say I'm PlayFusion and I'm in the UK, and I'm primarily, I guess it's fair to say, I mean, looking at their website even, the PlayFusion website, I'm primarily a digital integration company, right? And they talk about how they got some big projects that they're working on that are not at all related to games as far as I can tell. And they did the big Lightseekers push, and it was all about this kind of unified thing. And
well, that's a fascinating part of the story because that was their
the Toys R Us too.
They had a Toys R Us deal. They had physical toys, physical card game, digital app. They had an in-store shopping experience that was like augmented reality. It was this big thing. And then obviously, as everyone is probably aware, Toy Story filed for bankruptcy.
Toys R Us. Yeah.
Toys R Us. Yeah.
Toy Story's still going strong, my friend.
Oh man, Toy Story 4 coming out this year apparently. I was surprised. But who knows how that had an effect on them. But that was, from everything I gathered, they did Lightseekers, the card game, and even though the Toys R Us thing went bust, the card game was pretty successful. And they were like, hey,
all right, we'll do that.
Let's check this out.
So I think you're looking at a primarily like digitally focused and digitally staffed company that says, okay, well, the one thing that we've done that definitely worked maybe well beyond our expectations was this card game. And this is a world that we hadn't really been a part of. And so now we're catching up and becoming a part of it. So it's like, all right, well, now maybe we're talking to Games Workshop or they're talking to us or somehow those dots connect. And it's like, all right, we can do the same thing we did with Lightseekers for a Warhammer universe game. However, I mean, we don't really do card design. We don't do organized play. We don't know the ins and outs of the industry.
You don't have the experience. You don't have the infrastructure set up.
Right.
You don't have...
So in that situation, what you do is you try to hire people as essentially third parties, kind of like Stonemaier does. They bring a lot of like third-party people in. They don't have them on staff necessarily, like as a permanent part of PlayFusion, but as kind of contract work that's like, we need you to design this set. Here, this group of card designers design this set. And similarly, we need somebody to run our United States organized play. We need somebody to handle our United States distribution. And they're reaching out and finding people who have experience in the industry
that are
to
in the
do
US.
that. Yeah, in the US. The problem is a lot of people with experience in the industry in the US that don't have a job maybe weren't the greatest people to begin with, right? Now, I don't know that. That's obviously not something nice to say, but
it's speculation. And we also don't know the arrangement or too many of the people that were involved.
But there is a narrative that is maybe the people that you hired to do this did a bad job and they designed, like I can see the meeting right now, right? Like let's say I'm the US team and I've been hired and I don't know any of these people, so take that with a grain of salt. But I've been hired and I'm like, all right, I've got a great idea. This has worked in the past for games in the US. The United States players, they love competitive stuff. They love tournaments. They love cash, right? It's a capitalist society.
Particularly
we love cash.
If these people have experience in the 2000s.
Right.
Because that was such it seems like forever ago now. And if you're new to the industry, you wouldn't be aware of this. In the 2000s, this is the story of every card game. And there were a ton of card games.
Yeah, let's make it a big
we launch lots of prizes, big cash things, and then they're around for a year or two, they're gone.
Yeah.
Right? And they pay out for a while, and then eventually they run out of money, and then they delay the payments for 60 days and hoping to sell more product, and then it just collapses on its head.
Yeah, it spoils. So let's say that we're in this conference call and my US person who I've hired or my US people that I've hired, we're like, all right, we need to, our US market's not looking great. We need to generate physical sales. We need to get some excitement going on around this game. What should we do? What's going to work? We're not at all involved in the organized play side. And they say, we got a great idea. Here's what we need to do. We need to go big. We need to go just like blow it out. We need $100,000 in cash across some of the premier stores, let's say, in the country.
We expect this to increase sales by 80%.
And you won't believe it. The tournaments, it's going to get everybody to convert from the games they're currently playing to champions. They're going to come in. They're going to be attracted by these prizes. They're going to understand that this game is real and it's here and it's significant. You're going to see a lot more boxes move. You're going to see massive attendance on all of these early events. And then it's going to kind of get us back in the game, set 4 then launches, and we're off to the races. And I can see and hear that pitch in my head. I think it's a reasonable pitch in a lot of ways, very reasonable to believe that might work.
And
right?
if if the physical game was struggling, which it felt like it was, sometimes you're down by 3 touchdowns, kind of a thing. You got to throw the Hail Mary, right?
Well, and the fact remains, how can we get people to play physically?
Yeah.
If we need to move physical product, how can we do that? It's not improving the app. We got to do a big series, big in-person physical tournament series. So let's say that's the pitch, and then that's executed.
And side note, just for some musings here.
Yeah, muse.
Why?
That's all that it is because we don't have any.
Why the question of how do we get people to play physically? I think is tied to, at least until March or April when they made some updates to the app. I think physical was the main monetization of the game.
Yeah.
In that getting people to play physically means they have to buy physical cards. Buying physical cards means that we are converting them into transactions, right? But up until March on the app, it was if you played enough, you just earned everything for free
Yeah.
and never needed to spend a dime, which I
Yeah.
think is not the correct model. But anyways, continue your
100%. So in my theoretical universe. So this pitch is made, the planning is done, the marketing effort is done, the series kicks off, it's being monitored, and you get to the point where like your online signups are not what you expect, product is not moving, general social buzz is not high or not high enough. You get, okay, that's fine. The first event comes in, only 16 people at Millennium Games, which is a giant store in literally New York, where if you can't find more than 16 players.
Now, to be fair,
probably
it's
an
in,
indicator.
I think, Rochester,
yeah,
which
but
is like
still,
4 hours outside of
there's a
New York
ton
City.
of people. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many people that could attend that event for a chance at thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it's like if New York is getting 16, it's like, what are you expecting out of Oklahoma?
Right.
Right?
It's awesome.
You know, we have less people in our whole like county, not even the city, but the county, than one block in New York, kind of a thing.
Well, they count on us to be great at marketing the event.
Yeah, and I think, just based on knowing the locals and what was going on, we would have had well over 16.
Yeah.
At our event.
It may still.
And
that's the thing. We don't know.
Still,
Are these? I think they're still happening.
You know,
there's just weird
that's
prizes.
The funny thing too about the 16. You know, this is what's just super fascinating me. And there were people talking about they had booked flights and they were going to go to all these events and stuff. But like, if they had instead of all this, right, said, hey, we're going to have 16 campaign championships or whatever, and it's like you get to show up with a campaign box, like choose your faction, right, your starter. And it's like every round, they have a ton of product apparently, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like every round, everyone gets 3 new packs, and we're going to draft it.
Yeah.
And you're going to build your deck for 6 rounds, and it's going to be this fun event, right? And because you're literally getting 18 packs, right? It's like entry. You can charge $50 for this event, and you're going to get a bunch of products and stuff. But all of a sudden, it's like I think at least 16 people still show up.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
And
more.
because you just need a starter, it's like this, because to me,
you're trying to grow the community. You're trying to grow the player base.
And so you can either do that with the big shiny thing at the end, the extrinsic thing that's like really crazy, right? Or you can do that by offering an incredible experience at an event that anybody can walk into.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, I've been.
But you're not. You and I are not the U.S. Organized play team.
Hypothetical.
Right? We're not the organized play team. So
yeah, who? No one asked us.
Yeah, right. So should we go with the model that just gets Magic players to learn the game for 5 minutes, try to win some money, and then leave? Anyway, so this is the decision that's made. It doesn't go well. Let's just say, from PlayFusion's eyes, they're looking at the spreadsheet or the U.S. market data, and it's like,
this was your big plan.
This was the plan that you staked all of your reputation on, and it has entirely and utterly failed among what could be a number of other issues that we're not privy to. And it's like, gone.
Yeah.
We got to start over, because like whatever it is that you're thinking about the future of Champions, it's not working, and we need to get rid of all of our staff. We need to get rid of all of those ideas.
Yeah.
We need to drop all of the bad ideas that have been hatched in the form of cash prizes and just cut all of that and replace it with stuff that we have actively available. And it's either now we're going to reboot, which is this narrative. So we're going to start over, and set 4 is going to be a different
in some
thing.
way.
Or it's going to be, because it didn't work, we have no confidence it can work, we're cutting it all the way down the line. Physical's gone. Maybe we'll continue to do digital. They've invested so much in digital, they've gone on the major platforms. I think that still has legs.
I mean, you know what's crazy about this?
Many things.
I mean, besides, if we're just speculating about possible futures for a second, to be a little more hopeful, like the technology behind PlayFusion's games is really impressive.
Yes.
I really do, and I think that
it's very, very good.
The fact that you can play that game online like you can.
You scan individual cards.
Is really great. So to me, as an example, I really don't know why just other ways of doing this thing, right? Because I feel like they also, and I don't know if this was informed by the people they hired or not, but the prize system, the way they're doing it, makes it feel like you had this very innovative company come in, and they innovated part of it, and then just repeated the same process with the rest of it.
Yeah.
In terms of, here's how we release it, and it's in sets, and there's 3 or 4 sets a year, and we have these championships with money. It's like, I've seen that story 100 times, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about it, and it's like, what if you had the digital app, right? And you're playing it all year long, and then they did a once a year Q4 set. 80% of the cards are the most played cards from all year long. That's how we decide what gets printed, right? Whatever is most popular and gets used the most is what we're going to put in the set.
So it's like a big beta test, basically.
And then 20% of the cards, and it's a bigger set, right? Make it a 400 or 500 card set. It's big. 20% of the cards are going to be only ever available physically.
Yeah.
And you can scan them into the app. But the only way to get them is if you do the physical. So that way, at worst, you have your digital players all year long playing. And if they want to get the other cards, right, they have to buy the stuff.
They can buy the packs.
And they're going to be able to get all their favorite cards physically in this one big set. But you reduce packaging, print runs, all that stuff, right?
Right.
Have one really big set. All right, we're going to have another year, right?
That's the thing, is there's a lot of ideas. There's certainly a lot of ideas to think about and to experiment with. And what I think this is the reality of the PlayFusion coming into the space as it is that you don't know a lot of the kind of the boundaries. It's like my dad used to say, you can't do free verse poetry until you know the rules of poetry, right?
Yeah.
So when
Before you can break the rules, you have to understand
Right.
them.
So when you come into a space and you say, oh, I guess we are making a trading card game where we're releasing collectible packs, you just kind of reference how it's been done. So you don't have the luxury to step into the space with the confidence, I think, to say we're going to do this totally differently in every way. Not just the digital integration, not just the scannable cards, but we're going to release big sets once a year and we're going to do this whole thing. So I think it's just a matter of, is this a kind of the pinnacle of the learning moment for PlayFusion that then changes their approach moving forward? Or is this the physical isn't going to work for us moment? We need to focus more of our efforts purely digital.
And I
That's
think
the question
it could be either
answer.
or. And the other element of this that I'm curious about is thinking back, right? They released the digital version of this a couple weeks after the game came out at Gen Con. It's like, why would you not release the first set digitally? See what kind of traction you get, see what kind of downloads you get, see if you find broken cards.
Right.
Like, you have this ability to test things before they're live.
It does seem like it could be utilized pretty heavily.
And even to gauge demand.
Yeah.
And then generate like pre-order like excitement, and that way you're not missing the mark like you did. So there's a lot of things that happen. But now where we're at is, I think it's true. I think we're either going to get, it's going to be a pivot.
It definitely is a pivot.
And how hard of one and which direction they go is another matter completely. But I suspect it's either completely digital or an entirely different approach to physical than we've seen.
Yeah, well, I hope for the second one. Honestly, I think the game's great. So let's talk through our experience with Savagery.
On Monday.
It's always fun. The thing that you realize, you consistently, it just gets drilled in, is like, limit your choices, limit your formats, have a better time.
Increase fun.
I mean, it just increases fun. There's an element of tinkering that's really nice about deck building. I get that, and I'm happy to. I want to do that about once a quarter, and I want to have something that I really feel like. I only want to deck build when I feel like there's something that I really want to manifest.
But like, when we talk about deck building with these games, there's that phase early on in a game of deck building that is really fun and scrappy.
You're so right.
You haven't solved it yet, right? And so part of the problem for me is that it inevitably, the end is what isn't as fun.
Owning all the cards, making any deck that you want, which inevitably leads to the best decks that you can.
And the internet plays a big role in this because tens or thousands of players are interacting, min-maxing, figuring out what the best cards are, and then all of a sudden you show up and there's a whole bunch of the same deck.
Thanks, Al.
So that's where, like, approaching a game in a way that self-limits in some way, I think obviously Keyforge is nailing this one, but it's so important because we drafted and it was incredibly fun. And
it's fantastic.
I hadn't seen most of the cards, and so we're looking through the packs, right? And about 5 or 6 cards in, you realize what you could have been doing. So I feel like even just drafting several times would get me to the point where I kind of feel like I'm deck building. It reminds me a lot. We built cubes for the first block of Destiny, and that's my favorite way to play. Because it's somewhere in between. The way we did it, it's somewhere in between actually drafting and constructing. There is more of a building element, but not so much that you just see the same cards and you know what's going to be in your opponent's deck and that whole business.
There's a lot of value in limiting not limiting deck building completely, but limiting the options you have during deck building. That really does make that nice. You're talking about the slow grow leagues. You're talking about those kinds of things. It works. I mean, it's really good. And the funny thing is, like, we punted this game so hard. We were so close to glory on this one. We almost stuck to our guns. I blame Robert entirely, but it was like...
Then he bailed.
Yeah, he did bail. So first set, we were like, yeah, we're just going to touch this casually. We're going to grab a box, and we did it, and we played it in the hotel, and it was great, super fun, and then we got a few more cards, Hey, this is perfect. And then like Onslaught comes along, set 2, and it's like, hey, we're really loving Champions. Why don't we just get a Saga set for Onslaught, get all the cards, and then we don't have to build imperfect stuff anymore.
Part of that, though, was because we kind of, even with our set 1 approach, there was a little bit of an arms race.
It started happening.
Where we started with a limited amount. So the first box we got, I'm playing Chaos, and there was literally a Chaos rare out of the 24 rares.
Yeah, there was.
And the foils, right?
So here's your limited deck building.
There was probably like 30, 35 rares in the box, and I got 1. And so I basically am dealing with my commons and uncommons from the starter, and you guys are over there with like good champions and like all this stuff, and I'm just like,
check this out.
So then I, there were some parts to play. You really wanted the aspect of the sea, so you bought that.
And then I bought a foil one as well.
I had, there were a couple people splitting a box locally, and they were looking for a Chaos player, so I was like, oh, I'll jump in on that. So I got some rares, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, we had a lot of the stuff, but not the whole thing. So looking at set 2, it was like, why don't we just get everything?
Yeah.
And then build fun decks, which never happened.
It didn't.
I built decks, but no one ever challenged me.
But it didn't work. So we did that, and then set 3, we finally get our act together, and we're like, we're actually splitting 1 box of Savagery. Have a great time, and now everybody's canned in the U.S. So it's just like,
yeah. Well, that's
we just can't win.
So we drafted, and that was super fun. I feel like that's absolutely one. You draft it, and then you split the cards up. And I would be willing to draft more.
I would do what we did, all the time.
Yeah, I think probably 5 to 10 times per set, which is like you could do that almost every week between sets, kind of a thing, depending on when sets come out. But it is just way more fun. Like it reminds me of Gen Con when we were first learning the game. And it felt like with Champions, if you play it, when you have to really work for your turns and for your math to pay out, because like the first game we played, you slaughtered me.
Yes.
Because you set something up and I just had no way. I forget what. Oh, it was the thing
There's
where
so little removal. So it's just like when you have a bunch of like the spells where your stuff exhausts and I do damage, and it's like, well,
that was the one that won both games.
I can time that out just fine. I know he can't deal with this thing, and I know his stuff's going to exhaust, so
yeah, and
here it comes.
Then in the second game, right, I set my thing up, and it felt a lot like what made me love that game in the first place.
Yeah.
And then Constructed Champions makes me feel like what makes me get disinterested in most games, which is every card in my deck works together. And so when I draw 2 cards, I know the next round I'm going to be able to probably play 2 cards, and I'm going to play into my strategy.
And it's hyper effective.
They're going to be worth at least this much value, kind of a thing. And while I get building the engine, at the same time it's like, I've just seen that play out 1,000 times.
Yeah, and all the questions you started asking is, okay, I'm going to play this thing. If he or she has these 2 cards, then it's going to be not good for me. Otherwise, it's going to be good for me. Okay, they had the card. Okay, now I'm going to do this thing. If they have this going, oh, they just played this card, and I know I have to answer that, or I won't be able to win ever. And so, like, it's boring. It's not. There's no surprise
when you're drafting and you're drawing these cards. And it's
I have no idea what you're about to play.
Well, and the other thing is like...
You didn't even know what you're about to play.
That's right. There are ways of setting up those cards and playing them, especially when it's a random potpourri of cards that you drafted, that is way more beneficial than just playing the cards.
That's right. They actually, if you do it right, you'll get more value out of them.
And the extra value you get, because the average card's worth, let's say, 3 or 4 damage. If you get 8 out of a card, you did something right.
Yeah.
And so in draft, you have the opportunity, because it's slower as well, to do 2 or 3 of those moments in a game, and whoever does those moments better. And then even I remember in the first game, when I was flipping my blessing, I was like, there's a lot of blessings here that would put me in this game.
Yes.
And then the one I got could let me, it's like the first corner I can play a demon either in front or to the side of this character, and to the left was a wizard, so I couldn't play a unit there. And the second side lets me, after I do that, it's a heroic action, play 2 demons.
Yeah, see, it's like it's seemingly quite good, right? You get some stuff on the board.
Definitely, I think it's a good little blessing. But I already had units in both slots.
Yeah.
So I had to wait 2 turns for one unit to go away to then play a unit, which I did, and then that unit's in play. So now I have to wait. If I want to play 2 units, now I have to wait 3 turns for that thing to go away. And then by the time that happened, I had drawn and drawn and drawn.
It's like at the very end of the game.
At the very end, I went to grab 2, and there were none left in my deck because I'd drawn them all.
So you dropped to 4 demons. Yeah. That's the thing about the draft format that I do love so much is I'm looking at my cards, and these are cards that would never see play in Constructed because they're very conditional. But you just have to try to wait for the best conditions.
Yeah.
So you have cards that are, okay, if Zach plays these spell slots, it fills them with spells, this is going to do 7 damage.
That one card that does damage.
So I'm
based on
holding
the
it
spells.
for 3 turns, I hope he plays a spell next turn. And then I'm like, but then if he plays a spell and I also can play a spell and then play that card, that's 2 extra damage.
Yeah.
So I'm holding that, and then I'm also holding the all right, this is going to remove a thing over there. So I'm holding 3, 4 turns of play a unit, Zach, play a unit over there, and you're not playing a unit.
I'm just pass, draw 2. Yeah, but I think that's, again, when we just boil it down, it's what would be the most fun way to play this? And it's crazy how often the answer to that is becoming not constructed.
Yeah.
Not even come close to constructed.
That's becoming really just the push, personally and professionally. It's how can we have the most fun playing this? And I hope that that the show that we're working on, that we talked about on the cast a couple of times, can embody that. And that's really what we're trying to do. And hopefully that'll be a breath of fresh air for everybody listening, watching. If you just want to, ask the question with us, how can we have the most fun? That'll be a great show for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm super excited. I've been doing a good bit of research and then also gathering. So we haven't.
It's a critical part of research.
Yeah, well, I'm gathering physical things for the show.
Oh, right, yeah.
And as I'm doing it, right, it's I'm revisiting decades of my life as I'm doing this, and I'm just essentially I'm getting games in that I haven't seen in a while, and games that I have very fond old memories of.
There's nothing like those old memories.
And I am so excited to get some of those games on the table, and actually it's really cool because it's not only getting them on the table but sharing them. Mm-hmm. I think it's such a critical component of this hobby, and so I don't know, I'm really excited about it.
Well, I know that you got some big news you wanted to share on the cast and surprise me with. So let's do that. We got a question here. We shout out to Panda Hero, hashtag Ask Kevin. You can leave that on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or anywhere hashtags are sold. And it says, can we expect a new podcast with your opinion of if yes or not the Savagery set made the game fun for you guys? I think it's very clear that the answer to this is yes, especially in limited format. But even just the cards that I was seeing are more fun and interesting cards than Scarbrand, right? +1 damage, cool. That's boring.
Well, I did get that champion that lets you put a non-demon unit to play at the end of your first turn. That people are also complaining about. That's also pretty crazy.
You know what? Whenever we first saw that unit, it was oh, that's too good. Isn't that funny?
I mean, start of game, put a
search your
it used
deck,
to read start a game,
put a unit,
start the first turn, so it actually triggers the first turn.
Yeah,
which is wild.
Yeah.
You didn't get a chance to remove it. But I would say,
did you have fun? You had fun with Savagery, right?
I had a lot of fun. I think the cards are really one of the key mechanics that I kept seeing was discard. Discard from your own hand, discard from your opponent's hand. Cards that do things when they're discarded, which is interesting to build in, especially for draft. But I would actually be curious. I besides the Chaos cards, I didn't really look at Onslaught. So could you even have fun drafting that set?
Yeah, probably.
I bet you could. That's
definitely
the thing I think we mention a lot, which is once you do slow grow or a draft or sealed, what you can design in the card pool, and that's I really want someone to make a game that is a drafting game. It's not even we never even asked the question, what happens with constructed after this? You
not
can
like a
do
Star Realms-y kind of thing, but
No, but imagine if there was a collectible game where you drafted and maybe there's weird constructed rules, or it's theme based or it's story based or whatever, so that what you can do when draft is the only thing that's happening is you can design things that would not work in constructed.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
But draft right now is missing out on a bunch of really interesting, fun cards because everything is being designed assuming the min-max. And I legitimately think 99% of most of these games, players are not those players.
Right.
They're kitchen table, casual, friends at a bar, friends at a game store, whatever. And so even if you had constructed, it's if it's casual, I'm just going to play theme. You can do this busted thing that wins on turn 1 every round.
Here's the key. Let me lay this on you. What if your constructed event was you sit down, you have an amount of cards, maybe it's your collection. You get a prompt for what the deck must or must not include in some capacity. You have 30 minutes to build it, and then the tournament starts.
That's really cool.
It's like that kind of thing where you can do more than just, the standard idea that's been around since the late 90s.
100%.
Right? You can do
but
that.
yeah, I think and I think the cards you can make when you're doing that radically change.
Oh, 100%.
Like just on its head, right? So I would venture any collectible game, if you're doing draft or sealed, you can probably make a way to make it fun.
Yeah.
I don't care what the set is. I don't care what the design was.
And you should.
Why?
You should. I mean, I think that's the thing that it's just hit us over the head the past year so hard. Why are we not framing every conversation about this hobby in that context? Why are we not asking, how can we make this the most fun? If PlayFusion were to ask, how can we make Warhammer Champions the most fun? You don't land on City Championships with $100,000 in prizes. You will never. Never.
Not even think about it. Yeah, I agree.
It's amazing. Tell me your news. What's going on?
It's very personal.
Oof.
It's not that personal.
Gross.
It's medium personal. The news is that I finally finished my Last Jedi edit.
Oh my gosh. That's way less tremendous than I was expecting. I thought you were either having a child or getting a dog.
A dog, yeah, I don't know. That would be a trauma more than that. I don't need to have a dog. I would not.
Also, for anyone keeping score, we should mention update on Jonathan's country life.
Bogey.
Yeah.
The Bogster. Something happened this morning.
Yeah, I got seemingly now the Bogey, the dog, as Jonathan refers to him as, has been bit by a snake and is in the veterinary care this morning.
I'm just saying, this is what happens when you live in the country.
It's really turning me off from the prospect. Yeah, I might have to just bail out on the woolly farm.
Is that real?
Plan. No, it's not real.
It's like, oh my god.
I also have something very personal to say.
I was
I'm never leaving the city.
Oh my goodness, that's a crazy pivot. But I will say, on
tractor and a mower, that's what we need out there.
On the Last Jedi bit, the thing that is big about it is the fact that I ended up not having any help from anybody.
Wow.
I just, at every turn.
Does that make you a loner? I mean, do you think that's a character flaw?
No, I think it's maybe.
Are you too proud?
I wanted help. That's why it's now and not 8 months ago. I just eventually, like, if
this is what happens when you believe in other people.
Yeah, it's like if someone says they're capable of doing something or willing to do something and then they can't or won't or don't or choose not to.
More specifically, don't.
They don't do it. Because that's what initially happened is I time coded it all, rearranged it.
Didn't Jonathan get caught up in some of this?
Yeah, but it's not his fault. He told me back a couple months ago, he's like, hey, if you want me to finish those it was so it started off, I was just putting it how I wanted it on paper, and then it was going to get by a video person cut up and edited.
A professional.
Yeah, a professional.
Yeah.
And then that was taking way longer than I wanted, so I just did that part of it. And then there were a couple technical pieces I had no idea how to do. But I figured out everything else, and I got down to these last two things, and I was just like, I've been waiting to do this, and I'm just done waiting.
Yeah.
So it's everything from like the crawl that comes in, and does this thing, and the starfield. And that's an actual challenge. If you've never used After Effects, I had to learn After Effects to do that.
Wow,
so
that's some real initiative there. I'm more thrilled about you being at Covenant than ever. Yeah, it's
great.
Really impressive.
Well, so the thing in me is like I actually woke up really.
You looking for work, by the way? Because we got some marketing tasks that
I woke up way early this morning because yesterday I talked to Jonathan. He was like, "Hey, we had a lot of stuff going on at Covenant, and he's got a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, his dog got bit by a snake. He's got a lot of stuff going on. It's like I don't think I'll be able to get to this for." And this is the best thing when someone asks you to do something and you say, I can, but it's going to take me a couple months. It's like that's the most fair thing. If anyone had told me that up front, I would have immediately just figured it out myself.
Yeah.
So then this morning I woke up really early and just slammed it out, I was able to finish it. And I was like, that only took me like 3 hours. Wow. And I'm very disappointed that I waited 6 months
for 3 hours.
For 3 hours.
That happens so often, though.
Yeah,
it's
really
like
I assume this is beyond me. So, but the main thing is,
still anything stand in your way. You got YouTube.
Exactly, and so it was the first thing that it felt like a project I was doing, and I just saw it through to completion, and so there was this like euphoria after it was over.
Yeah, it's like you ran your half marathon.
Yeah, it's
maybe this is a full one.
We just finished it.
So then tell me this: if you maybe we should do a premiere for the podcast audience. Tell me what it is that you're trying to achieve with The Last Jedi. which you would obviously say is the greatest movie ever made, and
I wouldn't say that.
And I would have a lot of objections.
So the thing I was trying to achieve is when we watched it, it does have a lot of flaws as a movie, but I saw the piece.
The diamond in the rough.
Basically, I felt like the problem with it was editing. It was literally, they had a script, they had a plan, they did it, and then it ended up being a 2.5-hour movie. And I think it should be about a 2-hour movie. And so, just looking at it, I started like realizing the things that I thought were off or weird about the movie. A lot of it's pacing and tone, off humor that shouldn't be where it's at, and then like the at this point you've probably seen it if you're listening to this, but there's the space chase.
You guys should check it out if you haven't.
My least favorite thing is that like they literally say we have 17 hours of fuel, and it's like that's not Star Wars. Like just say we're running out of fuel.
Yeah, there's a crisis here.
But the fact that they put a time on it, and then it's like then you get to the point where we're running out of fuel, and it's like, oh, that took 17 hours.
Yeah.
Like. Anyways,
you can just chop that one right out. So you're basically just removing things that make no sense.
Removing a lot of stuff that doesn't. The crazy part is when I started cutting, and then you realize that like the film loses nothing. Like at least the part of the film that I was interested in, right? It's like you cut and it's like, oh, this actually, because it's the classic like you don't have to show and explain everything that's happening.
Right.
In order for the audience to understand what's happening.
Correct, yeah.
And so there's just little things like, as an example, just as a very innocuous, basic example, there's the scene where Rose and Finn meet, and Rose like shocks him, and like he's got his like arm that can't move, kind of a thing. I just took that out. And so the first time you ever see Rose is when Rose and Finn and Poe are interacting, discussing their plan to go like disable the tracker on the Star Destroyer. And Poe literally says, how'd you guys meet? And Finn's like, luck, or Rose says luck, and Poe's like, good or bad? And they look at each other, and it's like, we don't know yet. And it's like, it's clear.
That's way more interesting.
It's like, oh, how did they meet?
That's way more interesting.
Yeah, and it's like, but you don't.
I actually love that.
You don't.
You've sold me.
Yeah, you don't need to see it. So it just adds like 6 or 7 minutes early in the film that isn't doing anything.
Yeah. So you think you've done it? I mean, are you pleased with it? You watched it through?
I have watched it through. I watched it through before adding the crawl and then editing the one scene. Then I needed some.
So we're going to premiere it with the critics, Jonathan,
the Covenant critics,
literally essentially film school guy, and Robert, who's just a critic.
If it gets above a 6 out of 10 rating between the three of you, I'll be very happy. I think
I'm just looking for a good movie.
Yeah, I think. Well, at worst, the other thing is my birthday's coming up, and around my birthday every year, I usually used to watch the 3 original Star Wars movies. So that was my once a year. I'll revisit the 3. Yeah. Now it's exploded into like 1 billion movies, so I don't do that anymore. But
you can still just watch the 3 originals.
It's the kind of thing where like
not even Return of the Jedi.
You just really
just the first.
You just watch 5, episode 5. Here we go. Empire Strikes Back. But like, if I'm gonna watch this movie on a recurring basis, I've at least saved myself 30 minutes every time I watch it.
Oh, that's 30 true. That could lead up to nearly half a day in the course of your life.
You'd be surprised. I might profit in time on this before I'm gone.
That's awesome. Well, I want to see it. We'll
schedule it.
If it goes really well, maybe we can, I don't know, it's probably illegal to post that anywhere?
I don't know if it's illegal to post. It's illegal to profit off of it.
Okay.
Which I won't do. That's not the point of this. Send me $10 to this Cash App for a DVD.
Awesome. Well, hopefully people get a chance to see it. And that is, if it gets a 6 out of 10, maybe we'll consider seeing how you can get that public so that people listening and watching could potentially watch it.
Yeah,
I think there'd be some general interest in that.
I will. What I'll probably do is give you, Robert and Jonathan, a little. Like, I just want you to anonymously vote.
Okay.
Your 10 score, and then I'm going to average it out, and it'll be the Covenant critic rating.
All right. Fair enough. We can do that on all sorts of things. Yeah, let's get into that, right? That's
the
what
review
we need
game.
To be doing.
Nope.
Well, I think that's it, Zach. Are you satisfied? I think we covered everything. We'll come in on the next podcast. That's going to be Jamie focused, I believe. We don't have perfect confirmation, but we've got some email exchanges that are moving in a positive direction. So I assume that's going to be happening, and we'll keep everybody up to date as far as what we know once we get specifics about PlayFusion. This has been a difficult podcast, which you've heard many times, like, this is speculation. We don't know.
But you can't not talk about it.
But we got to at least try to figure out what's going on. So if and when we know more, we will get that information out.
I have a great ending question.
And Zach's going to end it up here with a nice question. What do you got?
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's it. That's really the end.
I have a question. Based on everything we know, just looking, let's get a little optimistic here.
Okay.
Look into the future.
I like optimism. May as
How
well.
would you like to see PlayFusion proceed with Warhammer Champions, and where would you like to see them take the game? Slash, what could they do to get to the point where you're excited about and engaged with that game?
Back with it.
Moving into the future.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, so very much for watching and for being here with us. And until next time, keep playing.